I've been a dispatcher for 911 for about 3 years now. I don't really know how my life eventually led me to work in this field, but somehow it happened. And as you can probably imagine, it's not the best job to have. The pay is not very good at all, and it definitely is not worth the emotional roller coaster that comes with it. I cannot tell you how many sleepless nights I've had due to what I hear on the other line. Most of my calls aren't too bad, mostly minor domestic disputes and armed robbery reports. But on the rare occasion, I will get a disturbing call, describing a murder scene or something along those lines. The calls with children are also some of the worst, but one call sticks out the most, and it only happened a few weeks ago. I live in a decently small town, so crime is not the biggest issue, but I guess that's why whenever we get a call about murder or grisly crime, it hits me more emotionally. I mean, don't get me wrong, all calls get to me, but not as much as these kinds of ones do. A few nights ago, I got a call about 11:30 p.m. I don't usually work overnight, but one of my co-workers were out sick, so I volunteered for a double shift as I'd get paid overtime. I get the call, I brace myself, and I answer. And this is what was said. 911, what is your emergency?
Oh my god, please help me, please stop her!
I was caught completely off guard by the caller screaming into the phone, and immediately I was put on edge. The caller was a woman, I could tell by the shrillness in the voice, and I already knew this was not routine, so I immediately tried to calm her down, so I could find out where she was and send the police via EMTs to her location. Ma'am, I need you to calm down, and I need you to tell me where you are.
545 Kiln Lane, please send somebody, I have an intruder and she is trying to kill me.
Kiln Lane was near the edge of town, so it would take police at least 10 minutes to get there. I had to get enough information out of the caller to inform the travelling officers about what they would be dealing with if things escalated. Ma'am, police are on the way. Are you hurt?
No, but she wants to hurt me. She's destroying everything in the house and she's fucking screaming her head off.
Through the phone, I could hear muffled screams of a girl. It was now apparent that the intruder was inside the house. Is there anyone else in the house besides yourself and the intruder?
No, I was alone before she broke in.
Okay, I need you to calm down, listen to me carefully, lock yourself in a room and hide. Stay on the line with me.
I'm already locked inside the bedroom and I'm hiding under the bed.
Okay, good. Tell me what happened.
I don't know. I woke up and I heard things rattling in the living room. I got up and I investigated and there was a stupid girl standing there fiddling with one of the cabinets. I tried to quietly return to my room so I could call for help, but as soon as I moved, she noticed me. Once she saw me, she screamed so fucking loud and then charged at me. I sprinted back to my room and slammed the door, and then I locked it.
Is she near your room now?
No, I don't think so. Oh my god, now she's pounding on the door.
Through the phone, I could hear the rhythmic thumps on the wood. Now I knew the situation was becoming dire. Most intruders, if caught by the house's occupants, will usually try and flee. This intruder had not left after being seen, and now she was trying to kill.
Please tell the police to hurry. I think she's going to break down the door.
The police are on their way. They will be there very soon. I prayed they would be. Can you describe the girl for me?
Yeah, I can try to.
I couldn't imagine how frightening this whole situation would be for the caller, but the description that the caller gave me was bone-chilling.
She looks like a child. She's not an adult. That I know for sure. She looked at least to be 7 or 8 years old. She was wearing a dress and there were dark spots on it, and her hair was dark, about shoulder length or so. Her neck was so messed up and her head was just hanging from her neck. But her eyes, oh my god, her eyes are missing. There's no light. The sockets looked empty.
I was becoming more and more horrified the more that she described her. This was no longer your typical burglar. No little girl breaks into homes in the middle of the night with the intent to kill. This little girl didn't even sound human, not by how the caller was describing her. 5 minutes had passed and I prayed the police would hopefully get there soon. The woman was crying at this point, and she was growing more and more panicked with every passing second. Do you know why this girl could have broken into your home?
I don't know. She stopped banging on the door.
I listened, and there was nothing, no noise, other than the caller's panicked breaths. Okay, stay very quiet for me, stay where you are.
Okay.
If she sounds like she's leaving your house, then please tell me.
Well, now that you mention it, this isn't my house.
Wait, excuse me? This... I sat at my desk, frozen and silent, for a good few minutes. I then broke down, and one of my fellow dispatchers who had heard the conversation immediately came over and comforted me. I told him what had happened, and his face went white as snow. He was horrified. He must be thankful, however, that he didn't have to hear it all firsthand. The police arrived a short time later, and I wanted to find out what the hell was going on as soon as I could. Thankfully, I have a friend of mine on the force who told me what she and the other officers discovered. This was what she told me when I talked to her the other day. The house had no forcible entry, no windows were broken, and the front and back door were locked and secure. She and the other officers on scene were dumbfounded as they couldn't figure out how the intruder got in. This either meant that the intruder was willingly let into the home, which the caller did not tell me, or that the intruder was already in the house when the caller returned to the house, which wasn't even hers, which at the time seemed to be most likely. The officers were able to pry open a window and get inside to check on the caller. The house was a mess. The picture frames, glasses, and even the refrigerator were completely wrecked. It was as if a demolition crew had a field day inside the house. The bedroom door had been blown off its hinges, and the door was in pieces. There were wooden shards everywhere. If the cops hadn't already been creeped out at this point, they were just beginning. My friend told me that a linebacker couldn't have caused that much damage to the door in one blow, let alone a little girl. She was already on edge, but it got much, much worse when they eventually found the caller. The woman had been found in the bathroom, connected to the bedroom she was hiding in. It was gruesome. Her blood was everywhere, most of it flowing from a gaping hole in her abdominal region. Some of it, however, was on the walls of the bedroom and the ceiling. Her eyes were also missing. My friend said a couple of police officers passed out or vomited from sheer shock after looking at the grisly atrocity that happened to the woman. I was already horrified by what I'd heard. The woman had died a very violent death, and this intruder was still out there. But my friend then told me something that made this case even more bone-chilling than it already was. While looking around the house, one of the officers found an out-of-place wall near the kitchen. This wall looked to be artificial, and it was connected to another wall, but it was only about 4 feet high, which seemed to serve no purpose. It almost looked like a barrier to the kitchen, though there was an opening right next to it. The officer knocked on it lightly. Not only was it hollow, but the officer, when he knocked, a small hole opened up. The officer knocked on the wall very lightly, but the wall was so weak that the knock had enough force to actually penetrate it. He shined a flashlight inside and saw a blanket on the ground. But what caught his attention wasn't the blanket itself, rather the lump that was underneath it. He called in for other officers to come over to him ASAP, and they broke through the rest of the wall. They inspected the blanket, and as one of the officers lightly brushed the blanket off the lump, what they found was almost as disturbing as the dead caller. It was the dead body of a young girl. They immediately closed off the area, and crime scene technicians came and investigated. After some time, the coroner came and took the 2 bodies down to the morgue. A few days later, the rest of the details came out about this case. I was eager to hear what the coroner and police had discovered, and my friend called me to tell me the rest of the story as soon as she found out. The caller had died from, and this was the exact term my friend used, blood loss from exsanguination. Her eyes were never found. The girl that was found was identified as Tatiana Estrova, an 8-year-old girl who went missing a little over 2 years ago. She went missing from the local playground, and she was last seen wearing a polka dot dress. I didn't think much of it until I found a missing persons poster with her picture on it. She was a cute petite girl with black hair that ran just to her shoulders, and as I was looking at her photo, I couldn't stop thinking about the dress that she was last seen in. I felt like I was missing something, and then it hit me, and I almost fainted as I remembered what the caller had told me. She was wearing a small dress, and there were dark spots on it. Apparently, the coroner determined that she hadn't been dead for long at all, and according to him, she appeared to be dead no longer than a month. While the cause of death could not be determined exactly, her neck was broken, and it wasn't post-mortem. I told my friend that when I originally talked to the caller had told me that the house wasn't hers, and she did some digging and reported back to me around the same time the rest of the details were released. The house belonged to a woman named Roberta Studdy, who had recently been reported missing. She had apparently told her family she was going on a trip to Canada with a few friends as they were going to have a girls' weekend, but they didn't return when she was supposed to. So during this time, her family would rotate house-sitting. Her sister Samantha was the caller. I knew what she'd looked like. Her photo had been shown on the news a couple of times since her body was identified alongside the missing child. She was a young woman with strawberry blonde hair and a slim build. After talking to my friend, I looked up a picture of what Roberta looked like. If she was missing, I wanted to at least have an image of her face that I could put into the back of my mind. My heart dropped when I looked at the picture of her together with her sister on one of their social media accounts. It was captioned, "Back with the twin." She looked exactly like Samantha.